start yapping.
So here we are at BC Conference, and I am talking to Ingrid and Ella.
Hi.
So a couple of years ago, Ingrid shared a story about a very special time that happened in Ella's life. So first of all, can you tell me about when you had to become gluten-free?
How old was I?
We knew something was up around age 4 with Ella, and the doctor suggested that we try cutting out gluten to see if that made a difference with some of her health issues. She had things like migraines, which 4-year-olds are not supposed to have. And when we cut out gluten for Ella, we cut it out for our whole family because I was not interested in making several meals. And turns out Ella got a lot better, and
So did you.
so did I. And we said, oh goodness, there's something here. So after many years through the medical system and tests and biopsies and yada, yada,
A
yada,
bunch of blood stuff.
blood stuff,
I don't know.
we found out that we both have celiac disease. And
Can you explain a little bit what celiac disease is? It isn't just that you just don't choose not to have gluten.
that's right.
Yeah.
It's actually an autoimmune disorder. So the protein in wheat, barley, rye, and oats acts like little razor blades in our small intestines. And so as it chops up our insides, it makes it so that we can't absorb nutrients. And so Ella and I were both malnourished, despite that we ate quinoa and kale and all delicious mangoes and fruits and vegetables.
And it made us so that we didn't get enough iron.
And we were both anemic. That's right. So we have to take iron even now because of the damage that's been done to our systems. And so...
But you can live a healthy life with celiac disease if...
I just don't eat gluten.
Okay.
The level of... But, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Because even a couple crumbs can make us react to it.
That's right. We have to have a separate toaster at home because my son and my husband are not celiac, so they eat gluten bread, but we have a separate area of the kitchen for them to
They eat
prepare that in.
everything.
And we don't use the same cutting boards, we don't use the same knives, we don't use the same flippers, because it is so sensitive that even just a few crumbs can actually cause quite a bit of harm, and the long-term effects of even a little bit of exposure is intestinal or pancreatic cancer.
Do you think that people really understand how serious it can be for some people?
Not everyone does. Some people just are like, oh, you don't eat gluten. Oh, that's normal. But it's really not, because sometimes I get really scared about it.
But do you think there's more and more people are beginning to understand, and because I'm sure that it affects your life, like if you're going on a field trip or something with
Yeah.
school, you have to...
Yeah, I always bring lunch to school. I don't eat hot lunch like most other kids do. I've never had hot lunch in my life.
And you keep a stash in the teacher's desk for sometimes kids bring cupcakes or treats on birthdays, so we have to keep a special stash of stuff in the teacher's desk.
And if we're somewhere where I'm gonna have like toast or cereal for breakfast, and I want to toast it, we have these little toast pockets to put it in. It's kind of
And it keeps it safe. Yeah.
So we brought our own food to conference for Ella.
So in the church, you may think it might be a big deal when it comes to potlucks, but there's another time that it's a really big deal, and that's at communion.
yeah.
Because at communion, we share bread and we share juice.
Yeah, and so that's been a problem for a couple of reasons. I will get there. There's some congregations will make sure they have gluten-free bread with the gluten bread. One of the problems is if you have celiac, the bread can't touch. It can't be prepared in the same way as the other bread.
And you can't dip it in the juice.
And you can't dip it in the same cup because if gluten bread gets dipped in the juice, it's then contaminated with wheat flour.
Yeah.
When we had both types of bread at our church, now we have all gluten-free, but when we had both types, we had a little cup on it and there's little cups of grape juice that they had too, so that we could have.
So how did it feel if they say all are welcome at this table and we share from the one loaf, but you would go up and there was something completely separate from you for you?
I just feel kind of left out if
Yeah.
there's stuff like that. Like even if there's just like different cereal that I have say at conference, it's just kind of like I'm left out.
Yeah. You feel like you're being singled out, and yeah.
So I got I was lowercase I interim minister between ministers at Comox United Church in Comox on Vancouver Island. And they were doing that same process of having the little dish or the separate station of gluten-free bread. But then because I was there longer term, I said, you know what, this is actually a justice issue for me. And I'm happy to bake the gluten-free bread, but as a point of justice and as a point of inclusion, I want to use one loaf, and I want that common loaf to be gluten-free. And the first time that we had communion with the gluten-free bread, and communion is often a stressful thing for Ella because she doesn't know what it's going to be, and
Yeah, especially at new churches.
especially at new churches.
Yeah.
So as she came forward, I could see her shoulders were tense, and she looked at me and she said, I don't know what to take, I don't know which one is gluten-free. And I said, the whole thing is gluten-free. And the fear drained out of her, and I saw this little child, because at the time she was about 6, 7 years old. I saw her for the first time come to the table, as I would hope anyone would come to the table, letting go of fear and trusting that God was present in that moment, and that God brought her there, and that she was a part of this mysterious, ancient, weird, cool thing we do when we take this piece of bread and we dip it in this juice and we share, and we are one community as one loaf.
It kind of felt like I saw it, and it felt like suddenly I had this little block of ice around me, but when she said that, it sort of melted. That's what it felt like.
Thanks.
That's an amazing, wonderful feeling. Now, what would you want to say to a church that's wondering, does it really make a difference? If we don't think that anybody in our congregation has celiac, but why would it make a difference for us to use only gluten-free?
Because sometimes people come and they just want to be a part of what everyone else is doing. Some people just don't tell anyone because they're scared of how they'll react.
So they might just not go to communion at all. Yeah.
Because that's just not a very fun thing.
Yeah. That would make me really sad to think that there are people who would either avoid coming to church on Communion Sunday, or who would just stay in the pew because they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some people are scared to ask about it or tell anyone. Because sometimes you just don't know how the people will react.
Yeah.
Because some people think it's like not a big deal.
Yeah.
'Cause
Do you get tired trying to, like, you're constantly trying to advocate for yourself? Does that
Well,
make you?
I've kind of gotten used to it since I've had it for some number of years. Since I was, about 4 or 5. So, because now I'm 9, it's been about 4 or 5 years. So, I've kind of gotten used to it because now I can say, I'm not scared to say I can't eat that because, I've gotten used to it. But sometimes I don't feel comfortable with stuff, but it's usually people are really nice about it though.
My current congregation at St. George's United in Courtenay, I told this story to as well, and we immediately switched to gluten-free bread as well. And one of the other things that I did talk to them about is we have a lot of recovering alcoholics in our congregation, and we do a lot of street ministry outreach, and we, as a church, we typically use grape juice as a an element of solidarity. I mean, it comes from our Methodist roots, but we welcome all to the table by using grape juice. And I think it's another way of us being able to say, hey, yeah, we see that you have this piece and we want you to be a part of all of this with us.
Yeah, because if it's grape juice, then kids come do it too. So, and all the kids there love communions. They always think it's so fun to go get some bread and grape juice.
Yeah.
So
And
funny.
in doing that, you are connected not just to all the other people who are there in your church, but to everyone who has done this, shared this bread, all the way back to Jesus, who is present in every time that we do it.
Because doing this kind of makes it so that everyone can be happy. Because I always like that Mom makes it so that I'm happy. Because she always is like, oh, you can do this so that you can, you know. Because she always tells this story to other people.
Yeah.
Because it just makes other people happy.
So I hope that in sharing your story with my congregation, that you will let them understand that it is a big deal, that it really does make people feel more welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us share the story with you. And if you have any questions, Leanne's got my email. I'm happy to Skype on in.
Thank you so much, Ingrid, and thank you, Ella.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Thank you. God bless.